In the second season of The White Lotus, there is a peculiar scene when the heiress begins to doubt Greg's fidelity and calls in a tarot reader, a fortune teller. The fortune teller layouts 5 cards in the shape of a cross. Tarot has many layout formats. The most common is the 10-card Celtic cross. However, this would have taken up too much screen time. There is also a 3-card spread, but that has too few elements to create an atmosphere of mystery. Here we see a 5-card spread. This is formally identical to a simplified version of the Celtic cross. This also has several different sequences and interpretations that have developed. This is usually viewed as such that the first chosen card, put at the center, symbolizes the present situation or its essence, the heart of the matter. The second card on the left refers to what is challenging or opposing this situation or a new factor affecting it. The third card goes at the bottom and refers to the past or what has led to the present situation. The fourth card is placed on the right and represents the likely outcome if things continue as they are. The top 5th card is the advice you need to take to achieve the best possible outcome. The fortune teller first lays down the cards face up, which suggests that either she is very good and the actual images don't distract her, or, as is often the case, she tries to force a story out of the cards, meaning that whether intentionally or not, she wants to exploit her client's situation and emotional state. Of course, here we see a written story, so very likely the cards were chosen in advance. The fortune teller first places the top card, then the middle one. At this point, it is possible the actors became confused as a cut follows. Then finally, she places the bottom card. She makes 2 statements in English. She interprets the devil card placed in the center as deceit, meaning that Greg is being deceitful. Then she reads the left side, the moon card, as beauty, so there is someone in Greg's life whom he considers beautiful.
Cards say your husband is in love with someone else. This card means deceit is being deceitful, and this card is beauty. There is someone beautiful in his life.
Couldn't that be me?
Not you.
According to the story, after this, the tarot reader begins to understand the cards and the ominous message more clearly, and, shocked, starts speaking in Italian. Pointing to the top, the star card, she says, "the stars," literally in the plural.
Negative.
Stelle, le stelle, le conscious.
Then the unconscious and the subconscious, which is also funny since the subconscious is part of the unconscious, although the words are also commonly used as synonyms. The point is that she interprets the top star card as relating to the future. Finally, she says, "I've pulled the beheaded man." By this, she probably means the hanged man. However, no such card appears in the spread. Instead, we see the Fool card on the right side, upside down.
No, I don't want this. They got creepy. No, it's...
After that, she corrects herself, saying that she pulled the Fool card and that it is dangerous.
Pericoloso. È uscito il pazzo. Yeah. È uscito il pazzo. They're con artists.
The tarot deck actually consists of 2 sets of cards. The minor arcana consists of 56 cards, 4 suits of 14 each. Their symbolism is simpler and they are usually interpreted in connection with everyday situations. The major arcana consists of 22 cards with much more complex symbols. Even how these cards should be grouped is often debated. The complete deck is therefore 78 cards. However, here the fortune teller only draws major arcana cards, yet based on the thickness of the deck, it appears to contain considerably more than 22 cards. How likely is this, Fred? So a tarot deck has 78 cards, 22 major arcana and 56 minor arcana. We draw 5 cards. The question is the chance that all 5 are majors. Because we care only about the set of cards in the hand and not the order they appear. This is a combinations problem. Firstly, let's count the favorable hands, meaning all 5 cards must come from the 22 majors. We are choosing which 5 majors appear, with order irrelevant, so the count is 22 choose 5. X choose Y counts the number of ways to pick Y items from X without regard to order. Here the exclamation mark means the factorial. For a non-negative integer x, it is the product of all integers from 1 to x, but for 0 it is 1. Now we can calculate the value of 22 choose 5. Let's also count all possible 5-card hands from the full 78-card deck. Again, ignoring order. The total is 78 choose 5. When outcomes are equally likely, probability equals the number of favorable outcomes divided by the number of all outcomes. This is the so-called hypergeometric model, where sampling is done without replacement from a finite population divided into success and failures. Another approach is that for the first draw to be a major arcana, the chance is 22 divided by 78. However, every drawn major reduces the chance of the next major, so for the second to also be a major one, the chance is 21 divided by 77. The chance of 2 consecutive majors is the product of this. In this way, we arrive at the same numerical result. This is approximately 0.125%, that is 1/8 of a percent probability. This means that on average only every 800th spread will produce a case where all 5 cards are majors. Well, this means that the tarot reader should have been quite surprised by the result. In the story, according to the tarot reader's interpretation, the central devil card represents deceit, meaning Greg is deceitful. The left side moon card refers to beauty, implying that Greg has someone else in his life, perhaps because of the moon's depiction. The top star card indicates approaching danger, perhaps because of the water before the female figure. The fool, placed here upside down, means the Greg is the source of the danger. The inverted figure perhaps also alludes to falling. The fortune teller even says that the heiress's madness will cause her own death.
I can't believe I paid for this because this is just really...
La pazzia ti porterà al suicidio.
You are so negative.
If someone who knows tarot had deliberately selected the cards, then perhaps the death card would have appeared. The lover's card would also have been an obvious choice. It shows a man between 2 women. He is instinctively drawn to the woman on the right, depicted as more beautiful, while Cupid's arrow, symbolizing a force beyond human understanding, also points toward her. The woman on the left, portrayed as grounded and as the man's true soulmate, tries to hold him back. This would also coincide with the hotel's theme, with infidelity. The inclusion of the Tower card would also have been logical, as it can signify both the loss of a privileged position and a fall. Or the Wheel of Fortune card could have been included, which symbolizes fortune's reversal. The left side monkey is about to fall into the depths. This would represent the heiress, while the right side monkey, Greg, is rising to the top of the world. The word card could also have been included, symbolizing Greg, who previously felt financially insecure, but after the accident he will have the whole world. We can take an approach where we don't interpret the spread as a charlatan tarot reader trying to read a simplified Celtic cross. Only the cross shape would suggest this, but neither the order nor the method of interpretation would correspond to it. We can also disregard the fortune teller's interpretation since it merely mixes different concepts together, except for the brief summary delivered in Italian. Alternatively, we can view the spread itself as a work of art. In that case, it presents an intriguing picture of the heiress's situation. So let's imagine that the tarot reader senses where she needs to place the cards, putting the first on top and the second in the center. After this, she probably places the next ones on the left, then on the right. The last card goes at the bottom. The first card placed on top is the star, representing the heiress's current situation. She lives in luxury, in radiance among the stars. The naked female figure shows her vulnerability. As if from two jugs, she pours out her soul's contents, her desires and fears onto her surroundings, whether they want it or not. At the same time, the black soul bird has already appeared at the top of the tree, a harbinger of death. The card placed in the center can easily be linked to the essence of the situation, the heart of the matter. This is the Devil card. On an ephemeral level, we can view this as the devil as Greg, pulling the strings, directing his attached friend and that friend's companions as demons. On a mythical level, however, the devil himself stands in the background, who gained influence over Greg and his friend, who by launching their murderous plan increasingly become demons. The two approaches are actually one. A rooster's head is impaled on the tip of the sword. The plan actually becomes a ritual of summoning the devil, meaning Greg and his friend let demonic and devilish forces inside themselves. The left and the right sides function like the two ends of a timeline. Here the left side seems to refer to the near future's situation. The crab can represent the heiress, trapped in hot water, surrounded by forces she can't escape. All of this happens in the palazzo, which the two bastions refer to. The card itself depicts the other world, whose gate is guarded by two dogs that won't let anyone pass until boiling in a source of negative emotions. Such emotions cannot pass through the gate, only if the soul can move beyond them, can let them go. Here, the palazzo is the underworld, the dwelling place of demons, where they have imprisoned the heiress. The two dogs, the guards, prevent the woman from passing beyond the gate to freedom. The right side card is the Fool, placed upside down. This simultaneously symbolizes the crazy heiress, who is about to fall. But it can also symbolize Greg, who will gain access to the inheritance. His fate will reverse, then he will start a new life elsewhere. The inverted position can also suggest that Greg has become a demon and has begun his unstoppable fall toward the underworld. The horizontal direction is generally interpreted as dynamic, representing process or changes, while the vertical direction is static, representing structure or components. The top here refers to what quality of the heiress led to this situation. The bottom shows what she should do to avoid the mortal danger. It's interesting that the center and bottom cards are very similar. In both, there is a figure in the center. The devil directs the two demons on his sides as his tools to achieve his goal. The chariot driver tries to turn the two horses, pulling in different directions toward his own goal. This card is generally about control, often about self-control, but in any case about the necessity of greater attention and more precise action. The devil's influence took hold in Greg and his friends' souls, and they became the devil's agents. Through them, as demons, the devil pulls the strings. According to the chariot cards lesson, the heiress could only defend against this if she strengthened her self-discipline, could react with greater attention and more decisive actions. To do this, however, she would have to transcend her entire former self on an almost impossible scale. At the last moment, she does try, but the luck that had always accompanied her now abandons her, and her inability to adapt leads to an accident causing her death. The heiress received several omens that warned her of the approaching danger and that she should be more careful. In the scene with the tarot reader, we can also see that the heiress doesn't really want to acknowledge the unfavorable news. Although the fortune teller begins to speak in Italian out of shock, the heiress immediately tries to distance herself from the unpleasant news. If something isn't reassuring to her, then, in her view, it cannot be true. The cards taught her everything, she just refused to believe them. All of this shows that she neither understands the situation nor wants to. She simply isn't used to facing such things. Unfortunately, her luck runs out at the last moment, and she becomes the victim of a stupid accident. The second season is organized around two main themes. The first is that uncontrolled inner instincts may make us the victims of others. After this brief detour, in the next part, the other main theme will be covered.